is on.
Tony Squires, Ryan Girdler, Brent Reid and Ben Teo with you. Look, I don't want to panic, but why did we play in Adelaide? Why was State of Origin in Adelaide? I mean, it's all
money,
over.
Tone, money.
Adelaide, they
Spreading the
played in
gospel.
Adelaide. New South Wales got beaten. Now, Nathan Cleary is out. There's injuries all over the shop. Api Koroisau, of course, has broken his jaw. We may as well just call it all off and to give the trophy to Queensland. Just play a couple of exhibition matches in rural New South Wales.
I like that because Aaron Woods...
Yeah.
If Queens win the Origin series, Aaron Woods has got to take me to Mr. Wong's for lunch. So I agree with that. I think it's a good idea.
He's going to take you, you and him at Mr. Wong's.
Not just us. He's got to shout at all of us for the Monday scrum. So I think that's a good idea, Tone.
All right. Don't panic, of course, should be the motto. Ryan Girdler, what have you made of these catastrophes?
Yeah, I park the hysteria, Tone, is the message, I think, and put trust in the people that have been on the journey. You know, it's not the right time now to be making, wholesale changes. You got guys that have been in the system for long periods of time, and, Freddie's at that point in his Origin coaching career where he knows his job's on the line, and I don't think, I think if he's going to fall on his sword, he's going to do it with the people that he's been spending the last couple of years with, and those people are already in the system. And I think they're great replacements. And I think we need to look at, some of the things that we did really well in Adelaide and not think about the things that we need to improve. And I think we really dominated through the middle third of that contest. I thought we had more ball than them. We just, as soon as we sort of got some momentum, we'd always go out the back and look for shape, and we didn't play through the middle. We didn't play with the momentum that we'd earned. And so I think that getting guys that want to run the football, get away from playing a lot of shape and just flooding the middle with bodies and big, strong guys like, Nico Hines on the right. Luai's been doing a job. Keep him there on the left. No disruption. Just let those guys in, play some footy. Bring Latrell back in. Cookie obviously comes in. I'd put a guy like, Robson on the bench, given the fact that Api played 80 minutes. And I just thought on the back of the momentum that we did genuinely create, we weren't able to take advantage because he was fatigued. And I know it's going to be a different ball game. It always is up here in Brisbane. But I'd give a guy like Robson an opportunity. He's sort of purpose-built for Origin. And then when we do create that momentum, bring a guy like him on. But Tony, it's not about who comes in and who's out. It's the story. Mm-hmm. It's creating the story for the people that come in to buy in collectively with the whole state to come up here as an underdog for the first time in I don't know how long. But it's always Queensland. They sell the story better than us. The story of, Arthur Beats and all that, they still thrive in all of that. They all buy into that. It creates a collective energy, and they take that out on the field with them. The connection that the players have with the state, they get that right. And I think if there's something lacking from New South Wales, it's that. It's the disconnect in some of those areas. We need to now, the opportunity for this playing group, as Tommy said to Reedy, and for the state to get together in a moment where no one expects us to be successful and create the story. Freddie's got to sell that. That's what it's all about this next game for New South Wales up here. It's not about who comes in and who's out. It's about, the opportunity that's there for us. It's a great one. And a guy like Nico Hines, who from what I can gather has been a guy that lives for these moments. You can't take that opportunity off a guy that's probably been waiting his whole life to get and doing the work to get himself in a situation where as a playmaker, you get to come up in game 2 at Suncorp to try and pull New South Wales off the canvas. That's a moment that any playmaker worth his salt would want to have a crack at. So Nico's going to get that opportunity. I believe Freddie will stick with those guys. He'll put the faith in them that they deserve, and they need to find a way to get the job done.
You've sold the story to me.
Well, that's
I
but
believe,
you know better than anyone,
now.
mate. You know better than anyone. That's what Queensland do, mate. That's the story, right?
Yeah, and there's always been that trust in the players that are right there. Guys that have been there before, or guys that have been in camp. And I don't think Queensland's ever really listened to the media and bought into the panic. I would say I am loving the whole romantic storyline of Adam Reynolds and Cook, coming in with Walker. I'm loving that too. And I think that'd sell tickets. I think so many people would be interested in it. But I do agree with you that I think the pack of New South Wales was dominant. And I do think Liam Martin's got to be back and he's got to start. And I'd give Tavita Pangai another go.
So would I.
Good. It's interesting to talk about Nico and Nico having an opportunity, because in the last few days, all the mail has been that Mitch Moses is a guy with his nose in front heading into this weekend. Now, Mitch's got a great relationship with Freddie. They were at the World Cup together with Lebanon, however long ago it was. He turned to Mitch 2 years ago when they had an injury and Mitch played 70 minutes of an Origin game with broken bones in his back. Obviously, New South Wales lost that game. But all the talk in the last few days, and it's coming from people who are in the know. Gus Gould talked about it, and Gus is a Freddie confidant, was that Mitchell Moses is the guy they're going to look at and turn to. So that would go against what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, look, that's just where I'm coming from, really. That's what I would do. And Freddie does have he's got a great kicking game. You can build a case for Mitchell.
Yeah.
You can build a great case for Adam Reynolds and Cody Walker, and you can build a great case for Nico Hines. But it's not about who comes in, as I said, Reedy. It's about who can Freddie sell this story to, who really understands the opportunity. And I would just think that the guys that have been in this series already, that have spent time together preparing already, it's a shorter prep, because I think they come in on the Tuesday. There's the public holiday. So bringing a new playmaker in that hasn't been in this series, played a couple of series ago, with a great, as I said, you can build a story for him, but that wouldn't be the way that I go, Benny.
No, that's not the way I'd go. But this is the whole thing of why it's on the coach, isn't it? It's on the coach and the selectors to make that call. And we all have relationships and good friends in the game, and he might get along well with Mitch, but he's got to understand, is Mitch the guy that's going to get it done for him or not? Because if it's not, if he picks him and it doesn't work out, then that's on him, isn't it? Yeah, he's got to make that call.
Speaking of selling the story, Reedy, you had some time with, or you saw Nico Hines. I saw you wrote a story with him talking to school kids at his old school.
No, excuse me. No, he was at he was in the city.
Yep.
But some of the kids from his old school were in the crowd.
Okay.
I've forgotten the name of the organisation it was for, but Nico spent 15 minutes with Nick Farr-Jones, the former Wallabies captain. And just spoke about life, really. Didn't talk about state of origin, or we spoke about his dreams, obviously, of playing origin. We just spoke to them about his life, what he's been through, and he said, look, basically the message was, don't listen to what other people tell you. You chase your dreams. Don't give up on your dreams. Keep working at it, and eventually you'll get there. And, it's interesting, Nico's, 3 days away or whatever from probably the biggest club game, maybe of his career, because if he has a good game, he'll be in origin for that game too. But his focus was more on, helping kids, and he made that pretty obvious, pretty clear that no matter what happens in his life now, that's his priority.
All right, let's get down to it. Api Koroisau won't be there, State of Origin 2. Tino Fa'asuamaleaui will be there. Is that the right call, Ryan Girdler?
It blows my mind, Tony, that you can have a guy that gets sanctioned and fined a week ago for running and using his arms in a way that knocks a player out and takes him out of the contest. And then where's the sanction? A week later, he comes out and does exactly the same thing. But this time, his forearm breaks a guy's jaw, regardless of who that guy is, breaks a guy's jaw in two places. And then he's allowed, and not sanctioned, not fined, and is allowed to play Origin next week. It's inconceivable to me, Tony, that can happen.
Well, they're different. They were different incidents. In the Reed Marnie one, he lifted his forearm, he raised his forearm, and I think he caught him with the arm that wasn't carrying the ball from memory. In this one, his arms, the ball's pinned against his chest. He never lifts his arm, and in fact, he doesn't even get him with the forearm. I think Api catches his sort of wrist area and breaks his jaw on his wrist. They're completely different, and that's why the match review committee ruled them differently, because in fact, Luke Patton sent out their explanation for it. And he said that Tino's arm was always tucked against his chest at the time of contact. The code references a charge not being proven if a defender's shielding his body from the impact of a tackle as opposed to leading with the forearm. He was never leading with the forearm of the elbow. He never raised it. So there was no way they could have charged him. That could have gone to the judiciary, and they would have lost. So they didn't charge him. And I think
What
they
happened to
got it right.
player welfare, Rudy? What happened to protecting, the defending player? Like, you've got a guy that's 6'5", 100 and something kilos, running at a guy that's 85 kilos and keeping his arms and players. And I'll ask Benny in a minute. And it's obviously it's a difficult thing to hear him speak about, because back rowers in those sort of situations, they actually look to go out and do harm on others when they're carrying the football, and that happens, and that's part of the game. And I think that it's a habit that Tino has as part of his game, that he needs to get out of his game before it happens again. And how do you get it out of his game? You get it out by making him miss something that's really important to him. Fines hasn't done it, because he's done it in consecutive weeks, and he does know what he's doing.
Yeah, I think they're two different scenarios. If you lift it, if there's space between your chest and your body and you're putting your elbows out there, I agree, that's a suspension. But I think he's cleaned up his technique, to be honest. I think it's nice and tucked in. It's clean bumpers. And that's my opinion, because, playing against guys back day like Jesse Bromwich and Jared Ware-Hargraves, there was a fair bit of separation between the body and the elbows. And you had a duty of care to yourself to look after you and not to tackle with your face. So I think Api, there's a big size difference there. He got caught almost tackling with his chest and got the face involved there. But that's just the way it is, when these big men coming with these big bumper bars, that's what we call them, big bumpers. All right, you got to get out of the way or go low.
Unbelievable.
That's up to you.
I think we've got to remember it's a contact sport, and sometimes you are going to have injuries and accidents. That happens. Sometimes it's no one's fault. Sometimes it's not a legal play. It just happens. That's the nature of the beast. And Tino the week before got charged because, he had separation. He did raise his arm to an extent. This one, there's no separation. His arms and the ball are always pinned against his body. And if you start charging guys for that,
and it feels good to run over a little guy, whether you like it or not, it feels awesome. All right, when you're 6'4" and you run over a 5'10" guy, it feels good.
Did you have a favourite speed hump while you were playing, Benny?
Who would have been my favourite? Little halfbacks.
You didn't never get Jamie Sauer during the
guys
troubles,
that weren't
did you?
very athletic, Yeah, Matty Heads, Jamie Sauer.
I've got to say, your heart goes out
You
to
two
Api, though.
Queenslanders.
I've got to say that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Api's obviously now,
Unbelievable.
he's had surgery to repair. I think he had two
I've heard
breaks
it all.
in that jaw.
Breaks in
I've
two
heard it all.
places,
Yeah.
loose teeth down the bottom
Yeah,
there. And
so
you're right,
We
Ryan
feel for
Gertler.
Api, but
It's just brutal Queensland, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
They're just...
Unbelievable. No, the good of the game just doesn't even come into consideration this time of year, Tone.
No, exactly. Queenslanders, that's the evil you are supporting come state of origin. What about the Queenslanders? They just sit there under the radar. Everybody talking New South Wales. They do have a couple of, Tom Gilbert, certainly. Jai Arrow is out. Ben Teo, what do you like? What do you think? Where will they be going?
Well, I think they'll be looking to bring in, hopefully, Kafusi. I think they need sort of someone like that, the enforcer. And probably Nanai. He's probably another one. Bit of X factor. But, going back to what Gerd said about selling the story, I mean, you got a million storytellers in there and that coaching staff of guys that know it, lived it, breathed it. You look around, there's Dallas Johnson, there's Hannay, there's Nate Miles, they're all in there, JT, Cam Smith. So I just think they're flying at the moment. And I think one of the things I'd say about Billy is probably he's meticulous in the detail, and he's got some current coaches in there, current NRL coaches in there helping him, good ones. And then he's also got the legends.
Were you surprised at the squad they went with for game one? What were some of the omissions from game one?
Probably I thought they would have gone with Ponga. I thought after what he did last year. But then, you just couldn't deny Reece Walsh. I thought Capewell probably, he didn't make it for a reason. And I probably would back those things. I think defensively some of his performances this year probably warranted that. And that's what I think with Billy is he's picked on form, right? Yeah. You couldn't really deny Reece Walsh and how much. And Reece probably reminds Billy of himself as a young player. He overplays his hand. He's straight away. He's gung-ho. And that's what Billy was. And I think he probably sees that in him. And he's probably the best coach for him at that level.
Tell me this, Reedy. I'm trying to work out the timeline here with the Kailyn Ponga thing, because he's said that he's told Billy Slater that he is unavailable
Yes.
for the series.
Yes.
So in the first place when Reece Walsh was selected, had he already had that conversation with Billy Slater?
No, he had that conversation with Billy. So he'd been thinking about it in a couple of days before Origin.
Yep.
He made the decision in his own head a couple of days before Origin. He let Billy know. I'm not sure if it was early on the day of Origin or the day before. He let Billy know that, and they'd had a conversation where Billy had said to him, go back, play for Newcastle, get some confidence back, and let's see how it plays out. What's that?
What a strange thing to say, though, that you're ruling yourself out. So if Reece Walsh goes down in a game, and so what? You're not available.
Yeah, well, that's basically the decision he's made. Yes, because he thinks he needs to get some footy under his belt, Benny, and I think he thinks in himself he's not ready to play Origin this year because he needs to get some confidence back playing for the Knights, and he owes the Knights a bit. So he's not saying that's it forever. All he said to Billy was, thanks for. And he and Billy had the conversation previously about playing for Newcastle and finding yourself again. So they'd already had that conversation. I think Kailyn took from that conversation that Billy wanted him to go and focus on Newcastle, and Kailyn made the decision, well, Newcastle's got to be my priority right now, and I've got to be my priority, and the best thing for me is to get some games on my belt playing for Newcastle, focus on that, and next year when Origin comes around again, be right on Reece Walsh's shoulder.
So you're saying that conversation took place after game one or
before
game one? Because the game where Kailyn got that first knock and went off for a HIA, they did an interview. I'm not sure whether it was us or it might have been the Fox guys did an interview, and they said to Kailyn, obviously it's a big week with selection coming up, and Kailyn said, "Yep, I'll be fine. I know exactly what's needed at that level. They have nothing to worry about. I'm totally available."
Yeah, and it was so obviously that was before he'd made the decision. Then he and Billy had the conversation about why he wasn't in the team. Billy saying to him, "Go back, focus on your club duties, focus on Newcastle, rebuild your confidence, get yourself back to where you need to be." And after
that, no chance, regardless of the outcome of today's game.
He said no. He's told Billy, no, don't consider me. But I mean, if Billy comes and knocks on his door, well.
Well, it's like one of those ones. It's like, people are, why are you not playing Origin? No, I've ruled myself out. I've told him, I'm out.
But this is the thing, and that's what Queenslanders never do.
Yeah, but
they never rule themselves out of Origin, and they never retire from Origin.
He hasn't retired from Origin. He just ruled himself out of this series.
Well, Papa retired from Origin this year.
Yeah, I've just called Freddie Fittler and told him I'm unavailable this time. I'm ruling myself out completely.
Are you comparing yourself to Kailyn Ponga?
Absolutely. Gerds, I know we talk about Jeremiah Nanai, the young guy who's been just brilliant, and obviously went on the World Cup tours, played beautifully. This season hasn't been quite so great. He's reportedly the man who will replace Tom Gilbert. Now, Benny Tia, you said that's you kind of like that, but I know that you're a big fan of the kind of the versatility and strengths of someone like a Kurt Capewell.
Yeah, well, like when they spoke about who they would potentially replace, some of those guys with, for me, or particularly Gilbert, it was Kaufusi comes straight in there. He's a guy that I just know New South Wales don't want to come up here and play against. And Nanai's, he's a fantastic attacking player. He had some really nice moments at Origin last year. He's had, I think, one or two okay. Sort of last week was a good game for him, but he's not a guy at this. If I'm trying to close out a series and I'm coming to my backyard, I'm picking the junkyard dog. I'm picking the guys that are just going to scrap over a bone. And I just think you know what you're going to get with Kaufusi. And then from a New South Wales perspective, I hope that they lose, Felice. And I think the value of Kurt Capewell, I don't watch probably the defensive side of it like Benny does. But he's a guy with great versatility that just in that arena always finds himself, having moments. So he's another guy that I hope that they leave out as well, yeah.
Well, they're looking for a starter and a bench player, aren't they? They're looking for Tommy Gilbert, you say he's a bit of a physical enforcer, aggressive guy, 100 miles an hour, that's Kaufusi. And then you're looking for someone on the bench, and I just think with Nanai, just that, that X factor to come on, he could jump up, pluck a ball out of the air, he's got footwork, and look, he hasn't been playing well this year, and I think he's struggled with the big minutes. He's had such a breakout year. Sometimes, players just take their foot off, and I think he's done that. But I definitely think he could handle the smaller minutes to come on and bring an impact.
What about Christian Welch? He's a bit of a
19th
forgotten
man,
man. He was
isn't he?
19th man in Origin 1. It's been pretty good for Queensland over the years. We putting a line through Christian?
Probably.
What said with not a lot of conviction.
Probably. Maybe if there was some more injuries, you'd probably look that way. I think he's still a great player, and I see him as someone who would probably start an NRL game for you. Get off to a good start. He does the hard stuff, but if you're looking for that type of impact, I don't know if you'd carry him on the bench.
All right, well, there you go with those teams. And that team, Bensio, are you confident that the Maroons can get that job done next week?
I'm pretty confident. I think the guys are going to have a good camp. Like I said, there's just so many guys to sell the story. They can sit around the fire and all the coaching staff can tell stories. And they understand what's on offer here. New South Wales coming up, they're desperate. They want to spoil the party up here. And I just think, Queensland are going to be very well prepared for whatever's coming.